You're listening to Navid Moosa of the Mindset Movement. Good day, good people. My name is Navid Moosa. I'm your host today and always for the Mindset Movement. First time listeners, thanks for giving us a shot. We appreciate it. We know there's a lot of information out there, yet you choose to come here. Thank you for that. Long time loyal listeners, thank you very much for continuing to giving us the opportunity to earn your trust week in and week out. And back in May, I started like a little business in a box series. We talked about how you would have good bookkeeping, a good accounting, just a little bit of good everything to make sure that the foundation of a business, no matter what it is a strong foundation, right? Business credit, your corporation setup, so on and so forth. Well, from doing that, I actually had a lot of great responses, a lot of good feedback, and that kind of encouraged me to start to go out and branch out and talk to business owners, local business owners. And so I'm joined today by a business owner and a friend of mine, who I think we've known each other for about 5 years, give or take.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah. So excuse me. And understand, if you're new to the podcast, or if you're watching us on YouTube or wherever wherever you get your podcast at, um, I try to get local people as well as and people in different industries. Yes, I'm a real estate agent. Yes, I'm an investor. Yes, my background heavily is in real estate. However, what that has allowed me to do is kind of run across a whole bunch of different circles. Truck drivers, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, nurses, doctors, engineers, so on and so forth. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to have somebody we've never had on before. And so Ed Tell, we were talking about Ed Tell. Ed is the owner and owner proprietor of Razor Bar. And Razor Bar is and he'll break it down better than I will. But basically, Ed and his staff take care of my dome and my kids' hairs. They have been for many years, and they do everything there. And I'll let him elaborate on the services, but please welcome Ed Tell from Razor Bar. Thanks, Ed, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me, and it's an honor. I appreciate it.
Cool, cool. So you have two locations. You have one in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and one in Collegeville, PA.
Correct.
And judging from what I can tell, you're at the Wayne store, right?
That's right. We just closed at 7 o'clock, and I was tidying up here, and just thought I'd stay here and do this
Yeah.
interview here.
No, I'm glad you could. Hopefully, that's it's cool. To kind of do it from your workplace, that you have that freedom to do so.
Yep.
And so, like I said, guys, Ed and his guys there. So there's a gentleman who works in the name of Steve, and I've been with Steve from day one. He's
Your
always
guy. He's your guy.
he's my guy. Him, and he's done my hair, my kid when I had hair, my both of my kids' hair and stuff like that. And even this little chia pet thing I have going on, he takes care of that too still. And they do beard trims and colorings and all that kind of stuff. For I won't say too much because I'm gonna give Ed a chance. But what I tell people when they say, "Where do you go?" I say, "I go to Razor Bar." They're like, "Oh, what's it like?" I'm like, "You ever see the Untouchables with Al Capone? When he's sitting in that big old chair and he's getting a shave. That's what Razor Bar is.
I love that scene.
I love that. I love that movie overall. That scene is great, and I'm just like, that's what Razor Bar is. I wasn't born in that time, but if I was, that's the kind of barbershop you guys have, and that's what I love about it. It's not standard. It's not a big name franchise, a
Right.
cookie cutter. It's very unique. It's the
And
customer
we'll never
service.
be. We'll never be that, by the way.
Good. That's actually good to know and stuff like that. But all right, well, enough about me bragging about my head. And basically, listen, Ed, I have you on here because, man, we've talked a lot outside of Razor Bar, other businesses and stuff like that, and things you want to get interested in.
Yeah.
And what kind of got me thinking about you was we've never had anyone in your industry as a guest, number one. And number two, I love your business approach as a whole, how you treat your staff. And you had to navigate some hard times recently. I
Sure.
mean, you guys were shut down there for a very long time.
Yeah.
You guys had to navigate through that. And in my opinion, I think you did an amazing job. I still, after you guys open back up, I see about a good 95% of the same faces there,
Right.
So that's a testament, in my opinion, to you, to your leadership style, to the loyalty that your staff has to you. They easily could have gone on unemployment or done whatever and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but they chose to come back. And that's awesome. So to me, I was like, damn, Ed has a recipe. Razor Bar has a recipe for success. Razor Bar has a recipe for loyalty. And but as we talk about, we were both late bloomers, right? We were late
Yes.
bloomers in our time of what we do. So I would just kind of like you to talk about that. Talk about your path of, what, how did Razor Bar come about, and who was Ed prior to Razor Bar?
Yeah, that's a great start. So I'm gonna go way back now. Well, I just had our 30th year college reunion a couple weeks ago. So that's how long of school I've been out. So I'll go right after that. Right after college, I had an early banking career.
Okay.
Uh, I was like a credit analyst in a relationship management development program. And I'm going to date myself. It was Core States Bank back in the day,
Wow.
and they then became, well, they're Wells Fargo now. So that tells you they went from First Union to Wachovia to, with all these bank mergers. Like the Sixers play at the Wells Fargo Center. Well, it used to be the Core States
The
Center,
Core State Center. That's right.
but I'm going back to the early 90s then. But it was great experience. It was a great program to go right out of school, because it was like an extension of that. It's a 2-year program where you did 6 months of basically classroom work again in the bank with key individuals and leaders and mentors in the bank. You went through that classroom work, and then you rotated in the different departments in the bank for 6-month stints. So at the end of 2 years, you were really well rounded, in and well versed in all those banking departments. So they were basically it's a leadership program for the bank. So I did that program, and then was like a credit analyst in commercial lenders for a few years. And believe it or not, it was that early when I got inspired. I was dealing with small and middle market business owners. They had a large corporate division too, but I only tipped my toe into that a little bit. I mainly worked with middle market and small business owners, and that's where I initially got inspired to have my own business. Now, it took me 20 years later to actually get enough guts and get over my fears and get enough capital to actually move forward. But going through those credit files of these people, I just said, wow, why can't that be me someday? I would meet them, and they were regular people. I mean, we all put our pants on the one leg at a time, whether men or women. Like everyone tied their shoes the same way. I'm like, there was nothing. I was like, wow, these are real people. I'm a real person. Like that, I could do this one day. So I was literally inspired then. But then I kind of got stuck in the corporate world because I was learning. It was good to be learning, but you get comfortable. You get comfortable making a decent salary, and you get comfortable with the benefits. And I then morphed into the pharmaceutical world. I shifted out of banking. I worked for Merck for a long time, a large pharmaceutical company. I learned a ton. I was smartest people I ever worked with were at Merck. But again, you get very comfortable with a nice salary and nice benefits. You get comfortable, but then I realized as I was approaching 40, I realized I was comfortably numb. It really wasn't like the Pink Floyd song, right? Like it was like I'm comfortable, but there was something on like a spiritual gut level and calling of what I was supposed to be doing. I got to a point in the career where I was going through the motions, and I lost the passion a little bit, and I wasn't learning as much anymore. And so that's it. Really, you do some soul searching at different points in your career, and then that's what led me to really start exploring opening my own business again.
So you had said earlier on when you were talking about, like, why not me? These people put their pants on, tie their shoes, brush their teeth, just
Right.
like you and I do.
It's like we all do. Yep.
Exactly. And then you had said, you had the guts to get over it, and then of course the capital. What do you think was harder? Was it the fear, or was it not having the cash? If you had to pick one, what was more? What was more for you to overcome?
I think it was the fear. I think, when I talk to people and when they look at the business and what I've done now, I'm like, I overcame myself. Like probably the biggest achievement is overcoming your own mental blocks and your own fear. And I say that because obviously you need capital, but I'm telling if you have the passion if you have the passion and have a plan, you can usually find capital, you
Yeah,
know,
if you really want something,
find
you
a
can
way.
you
So
can get it.
so so it was really overcoming the fear I had of taking that leap. And I perceived that I was so secure in that environment, in the corporate environment. When you see, especially with something we went through last year with COVID and shutdowns, are you really that secure in companies, like with layoffs? And we got to a point with mergers and layoffs and things. I mean, every quarter, people I was working with, you're looking over your shoulder for, hey, is this the time you're going to get downsized?
Mm.
So it was really a mirage of safety. um, I didn't know that till I took the leap and hopped over. But you finally see that actually controlling your own destiny and creating your own destiny is actually safer than, for me, it was safer than working for someone else.
Now you said you right out of college, you got now is that so what was your degree in?
So I was political science and accounting. I was a dual major.
Okay, and so so you basically leverage your accounting degree to get your job in
Correct. I,
as an
I used the
analyst.
accounting degree to get it. That was pivotal for getting in that bank program.
Yeah. How
And
long were
then,
you in that
and then when
program?
I was there, I went for my MBA at night at Villanova.
Oh, okay. All right. So
So while I was working, I went to night school for my MBA.
for MBA. Now, how long were you with Wells Fargo Core States? How long were you with them?
Well, I was in banking total for 5 years.
Oh, okay. And that's before you left to go to pharmaceuticals?
Yes, and then I left, and then I was in the pharmaceutical world for about 18,
What
about
made you
17 or
what
18.
made you go from banking to pharmaceuticals?
Well, you're young. Think about it, college, and then you're in that world for 5 years, so you're still your mid 20s. To be honest and transparent, you're a little more motivated by status and money at that time,
Of
and wanting
course.
to get ahead. And I had some friends from college that were a little bit older than me, that they went the pharmaceutical route right before me.
Okay.
So you can't, I know now as an older man that comparison is the thief of happiness. But as young, it is, because you can always compare yourself to someone else, and there's always going to be someone with more or something better. But as a young, in my 20s, in the young 20s, you are comparing. And so I ended up leaving because pharmaceutical market was more lucrative at the time. I would look out, and people that I saw that were mentors I had in the banking that were there 15 and 20 years, I kind of talked to them, and I saw where they were at and kind of what they were making from a compensation perspective. And then I would talk to my friends in the pharmaceutical industry, and it just seemed like some more upward mobility and kind of status and money at that time. Again, going back now, I would kind of approach it differently as a 52-year-old man right now. But in my young 20s, that's kind of what I was seeking. So that prompted the change.
Yeah, I mean, I think hindsight is 2020. I mean, obviously you've heard that all the time. Hindsight is 2020, hindsight is 2020. And the reason why I was asking the time frames was because I think there's a lot of pressure that social media has kind of put on people, or they put on themselves, however you want to phrase it, that we almost feel that in our early 20s or mid 20s, we have to have it figured out.
Right.
Like about, hey, you graduated, so you got life figured out, you got your college degree and stuff like that. That's not the case. And like I said, there's a lot of people who I've interviewed on this show, and a lot of them, it's the same story. They think they have it figured out because they got the degree, but at the end of the day, they're like, I'm bored. I was comfortable, but now your comfortable becomes boredom.
Right.
And you're like, I gotta
Yes.
do something else, right? It does. You get comfortable, you get bored, and you're like, and then you go into the spiral of I'm lost, I need to do this and stuff like that. I always tell people just pump the brakes for a little bit and just take a look back and look what you were able to accomplish, right? In your case, you're one of the very few people I personally know who actually used your high school or your college degree rather. Now, there's so
Right.
many people I know who have a college degree and don't even use it to this day, right? So you took it and leveraged it. And I had a podcast that I did an episode on. I don't know if it's aired yet or not. I can't remember. For those who are on the W-2, and I talk about just because you have a W-2 job doesn't mean you're in a dead end job. The W-2, if you're smart about it, right? If you can leverage that W-2 to
Mhm.
get, so instead of you having a W-2 from somebody else, you're creating your own W-9, you're creating your own W-2 that you're cutting your check for yourself. And that's, in my opinion, that's what you did. You leverage it. You said, I got my accounting degree. Let me get in here and analyst and in banking in general. And then you ran across people who are like, you know what? I can do what they do. And then, but like 20-year-old Navid, 25-year-old Navid, 25-year-old Ed, 28-year-old Ed, 28-year-old Navid were like, I want to get paid. I want people to know I have money. I want people to know I got a nice car, nice
Right.
clothes, nice watch. And and I wanted you to talk about that. I'm glad you did, because I think a lot of people think, well, life isn't all about that. And it isn't. It's not. However, when you are young, what do we see all the time? What is your success that you've made it? It's what you drive, it's what you wear, it's what you live. That's our thing of success. Like, I'm 46, you're 52. At our ages, it's kind of like, the hell with that stuff. We don't need it anymore. But we can say that because we had those things.
Right. You
So,
experience them. Yeah.
exactly. It's like, I tell people, there was an interview that they did with Michael Irving. I know we're in Philly land, so I don't know about Dallas fans here, but Michael Irvin, 3-time Super Bowl Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer. They asked him, "Would you prefer a Hall of Fame ring or a Super Bowl ring?" And he said, if he had to do it, he would take the Hall of Fame ring any given time. But they asked Dan Marino, "What would you want?" Dan Marino said, "I want a Super Bowl ring." But
Mm,
Dan Marino says that because he's never had a Super Bowl ring,
right.
right? So
Yeah.
you almost want what you've never had, right? Because if you're any athlete, you say, okay, I'm going to go in and win, an MLB championship, NBA championship, or the Super Bowl. You don't say, I want to be a Hall of Famer. Not initially when you're young. So when you're a young athlete, first round draft pick, you're like, I want a Super Bowl. I want a Super Bowl. Once you get that Super Bowl, then you say, I want MVP. Then you get MVP, then you're like, I want a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? It's the evolution of our goals and
Yeah,
stuff.
you
So
keep chasing those things you don't have. As you get older, you start thinking about legacy
yeah.
more when you're younger.
And now with social media, we're seeing so much of that, right? We're seeing so much where people are kind of expected to have your legacy figured out by the age of 25.
Mhm.
Is it impossible? No. But you're a late bloomer. I'm a late bloomer. Now I want you to, if you don't mind, talk about the struggles to get. We talked about you going to college. We talked about you being in 5 years in finance. Now you did 18 years in pharmaceuticals.
And it's funny, let me just add there. I thought about it. It was probably subconscious at the time. Maybe some of the material things drove some of those decisions then. But when I look back now,
Mhm.
um, I really, it was, to me, it was also about learning and checking different boxes for learning lessons to prepare yourself for where you're at today.
Okay.
Like finance, like understanding profit and loss statements, understanding the balance sheet, understanding the decisions that go into that impact those financial documents, and then going into pharmaceutical marketing and market research, coming at it from that psychological behavior. I look at every kind of role or job I had, and they were like tours. It's almost like that program I started out in, and I just extended that informally across whatever company I was working for.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
viewed any job I had, I wanted to do well, but it's like, okay, where it's a stepping stone to what's next. And then that's finally where it culminated and, really helped me pull the business plan together and get started.
So now let's talk about that. Let's talk about when you left pharmaceutical. It's good. Back in that time, like you said, the lucrative, I mean, still lucrative business.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical is
Yeah.
huge. It still is. But yeah, it was different back then. But you left. You
Yeah.
still ultimately, you still decided that this wasn't me.
Right.
What happened? I mean, you were making money. I'm assuming everything was going fine. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Why would you leave? Why would you leave that cushiness?
Yeah. It just, I think you hit it on earlier about you get comfortable and you get bored. And then you have some of those, it's like having the Super Bowl ring, like you talked about. Well, maybe my Super Bowl ring was having a decent savings account then. And I had a nice car, I had a house, I had a savings account. And then once you attain those things, it dawns on you, you're like, wow, I chased them. I thought that's what I wanted. That really wasn't what you wanted.
That's
But
right.
you get them and you're like, is that all it is? Is that a 4-bedroom house? And I was single at the time, nice car, BMW, like, and you're like, okay, I got there, but is that it? Is that all this is about? And then
Yeah.
as you get older, you start turning in, it's wisdom, right? You start getting wisdom and notice you got to feed the soul and feed spiritually a little bit more. And it's the material things kind of fall to the side and you start being driven by kind of a higher motivator. And then for me, it was to create something, and it's why I didn't go, there's nothing against franchises, but for me, it was more important for me to start something from the ground up that wasn't a franchise, because I started learning, I really started enjoying the journey and that creative process. Like I was most happy creating something,
So
and
let's
the
talk about
process
that.
to create something.
So, because if you got financing, pharmaceuticals, now the salon, like
Right.
there's no, I don't see a pattern there at all, right? But maybe the pattern, like you said, is the creation. So
Right. Well, because in
why race bar? Like why this
pharmaceuticals,
concept?
it was market research and marketing. So, while in the pharma world, you're marketing healthcare products, you still learn the principles of marketing and market research that then you could take. And now I just applied them to the retail sector,
Okay.
in the barbershop business. So there was a lot of, it might be a different industry, but a lot of the same principles, like I said, of market research, marketing, finance, P&Ls, balance sheets. You could just translate that to another industry. So that's how I kind of crossed over. And I was really inspired from being a guy, because I never cut hair, but I I'm I like to observe things, and I think really smart and wise people that I know, they're very observant. And I just wasn't happy as a guy. I wasn't happy with the alternatives that were out there for for a grooming experience. I saw them more as transactional, and you get your hair cut. But I longed for a day back to that image you struck out of the Untouchables when De Niro's in the chair, like a little more classic vintage, when it was more of an experience. And that's our tagline: Razor Bar is a cool experience,
It is. And
cool
you guys
barbering
live up.
experience, and that's what we try to be. So, and then I would travel, and like in New York and DC, I would go to some select places, and there were some of those better opportunities. But I noticed in the Philadelphia suburbs, there was a void. So that got me looking into it, and I also noticed that the men's grooming industry was evolving as well. I saw that trend, that it was becoming less of a chore and more about the experience. Um, and there was cool shops opening up where you could have a complimentary beverage and a shave and a haircut. Um, and that it just really struck me to finally, I just committed to actually I said, let me commit to putting the business plan together, and I'll get through that process. And then at the end of that, I'll decide, make a go or no go decision based on that.
So for people who are listening, um, how what was that transition like? So you're saying, I think you said 18 years in the pharma industry.
Well, I didn't
Uh,
go cold. I did.
okay, so that was my thing.
I
Like
kept one foot in. I slowly transitioned out of pharma. I moved. Became a 1099 contractor.
within the
So
pharma industry.
pharma industry. So I
Okay.
did consulting. I quit the day job per se, and then became a 1099 consultant, and I got
Okay.
hired for like freelance gigs. So I became a freelancer a little bit for 2 years as I got the razor bar business started.
So now, was that part of your plan? Was your plan was, okay, I wanted to raise a bar, but to get there, I need to do this 1099 gig first. Was that like your plan or
No,
no?
no, that
No.
wasn't just. I wanted to jump off and just do it.
Okay.
Uh, but then when you realize once for the startup cost and getting something started, the money that takes, and you're used to a certain lifestyle. And let's face it, wherever you're at in life, you have bills too. You have
That's
just some
right.
realities of, I had a home and a car, and student loan payments, they were all finished, thankfully. But you had some debt and responsibility. Um, and so I quick saw that, just jumping off and do it at full time. And once you do projections, I saw that for a couple years that you weren't going to be able to pay yourself anything, if at all, close to what you were making. So I had to make a decision, like, all right, how can I make this work? And I talked to friends and colleagues in the industry, and some people I had worked with and networking. They were like, well, yeah, if you have these skills. So we'd hire you as a 1099 contractor. You have value of that. And then you could decide, hey, I only want to work 20 or 25 hours this week to then free up, another 30 to put into the new business you're trying to start.
Yeah, see, so I'm glad you mentioned it. That's what I was asking is, again, our listeners here, for those people who are listening who have a W-2, is sometimes, yeah, we get frustrated at our job and we like, why didn't I get that promotion? Why didn't I get this? And then they hire somebody, you have to train somebody for a job you applied for. Like, that's kind of
Sure.
BS. And so when you get frustrated, so you just want to leave, you can't let emotion kick in. And that's why I was asking Ed. I was like, hey, listen, why don't, what is it? Like, was it the 1099 was planned? It wasn't planned, but something at maybe it was year 16 or year 15 or year 17, something in your mind said, okay, I can't keep doing this. I don't know it's not necessarily raise a bar, but I know it's not this. So let me start my mental business plan
Yeah.
of either saving more money or selling stuff or whatever it is. And so I want the people not to understand that, look, if you have a job now, leverage it. And if you're tired of it, that's fine. But it doesn't mean you become disrespectful to your employees, start slacking off.
Right.
That just means you manipulate your time differently in a good way. And here's
Actually,
what I tell people is just sorry, real quick, is that if you're tired of your job, you're tired of your W-2 and you want to do something else, it's hard for you to just quit. It's not reasonable because, like you said, there's bills got to get paid. And if you
right.
quit, you quit. Instead of you taking vacation, take your vacation days off for yourself and invest in yourself during your vacation days.
Right.
A lot of people think I'm crazy when I say that, but I'm like, think about it. If you take like 2 or 3 vacation days, instead of you going on vacation, use that to invest in yourself, educate yourself, reading, YouTube University, whatever it is out there. Then you can book your own damn vacations for as many things you want, but leverage what you have right now to the best of your ability, which to me, in my opinion, that's what it sounds like you did. You had an idea and you said, okay, let me go to this 1099 work first. Let me get that consulting gig in. And then that kind of morphed into whatever it morphed into.
Yeah. And Navid, I really admire people that have families and do this. I got to be, I was single at the time. Um, I look back and I wonder, if I was married and had 2 or 3 kids, I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking to you today with that. I don't know if it would have happened just from the time management perspective. I kind of levered, like you said, I was a bachelor for a longer time, and I kind of leveraged that being single because I could work till get home at 6:30, grab a quick bite, and because I was single without children, I could then start working on the business plan and getting ready for the startup of the new business. Do that from like 7 to midnight before I went to bed.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you have a family and kids, I know some friends that have a similar story to mine and have done that with the family. And I quite honestly, I don't know how they've done it.
Yeah, it is a balance. I mean, you see my 2 boys, stuff like that. You see them, once a month, and it is a balance, but we all are given 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And so how
How
do
do
we
you
do?
do it?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I mean, you have to. I mean, I can tell you right now that Isaiah, who says hi, by the way, I told him, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go talk to Mr. Ed." He's like, "Oh, tell him I said hi." Um, he's a very bright kid, but he comes with me to my appointments. When I have my meetings and stuff like that, he comes in with me with them because that's what I had to do. We don't have family around here. But if it goes back to when we first started the conversation, if you really want something, you're going to find a way to get it done.
Right.
Like you said, it fear, was it capital? You said fear was more than capital, and I'm glad you said that because I hear it's the same thing. Everyone says, "Well, I don't have the money. I don't have the money." The hell with that. If your plan is a solid enough plan, and
Right.
what you've done your proper due diligence, the money will kind of come into place. And when I started my podcast a while back last year, I used to always end it saying basically, um, never chase the money, chase the deal.
Hmm.
Because if you chase money, you're blind, so you have blinders on. But if you chase the deal, that makes everything happen, right? You get money, you accomplish a goal for yourself, and your client's happy too, right? Because it's like a 3 for 1 special when you chase the deal. When you chase the money, it's a one trick pony. That's it. So, to hear your story, that, and you admit it, and that as a as a guy, as an adult, or whatever you want to phrase it, to admit that you're scared of something is very hard to admit. Because when you admit you're scared of something, it's almost like you're admitting that you're weak.
Yeah.
You're almost admitting that, well, I'm not strong enough to accomplish this, right? But in my mind, I tell my kids this, and any realtor, any kind of agent in my office, I tell them the same thing: is listen, the minute you can admit you're scared, that's the same minute simultaneously you're also accepting your leadership role in this life.
Right.
It's the exact same time because it just happens. It's what do you want to focus on, the fear or the fact that, you know what, I'm a grown, mature enough individual to admit my fear. So that means I'm able to now start becoming a leader.
You can't really address it until you do admit it.
That's right.
And it's
Absolutely right.
funny, back then I had my investment guy that I was dealing with back then. When I told him I was going to start my own business, he was shocked actually, because he was like, because he knew, with someone you deal with your investments, they get your risk tolerance. They talk to you about your psychological makeup and what your goals are and your risk tolerance. And he said, Ed, he said, you don't even have like pure money in the stock market. You're a mutual fund guy. He's like, you don't even take risks with stocks. He's like, you're hedging all the time and in funds and indexes. He's like, you're so risk adverse. We started having this conversation. He's like, how are you doing the most riskiest thing or perceived riskiest thing out there of starting your own business? And at the end of the conversation, we both came to the conclusion, it's because I was betting on myself.
There you go.
And then I got comfortable with saying, I rose up to the challenge and said, yes, I'm completely risk adverse, but I'm going to bet on myself. And I perceived control in that. I perceived that I wasn't relying on someone else, that I was relying on, it was a control issue that I kind of had to deal with to get me over that hump.
So how did you, okay, so you have Razor Bar, you got two locations. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the bumps and bruises.
Sure.
Unless there was none, unless you got lucky, found a spot and got money, you were rich and everything was flowing from the heavens.
So my one advice would be, whatever business plan, do the business plan. It's a great process to go through. And then when you do your financial projections, but the first day you open, rip them up.
Rip it up. Okay. Now, why is that?
Nothing goes as planned. The biggest advice I can give in the beginning part is embrace that you're going to have to adjust. And I'll give you an example. For when I did projections, they were necessary to I got an SBA bank loan.
Okay.
So they were necessary to pitch to the bank and show that you had a plan, especially a pharmaceutical guy going to start
that's right.
retail
Totally different industry. That's right.
Totally different industry. So my background helped me put a nice plan together. But when we're doing projections, I was a year off the first year. So what we did our first year, I was basically a year behind. So what we accomplished and did for our revenue projections the first year was really what I had in my plan for year two.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so we're basically it took me like two and a half years to catch up what my projections were, because we had things built in. You've been to the shop, Navid, early on. We had a pedicure unit. We had other than just your basic fundamentals of haircuts, shaves, and beards, we had a whole spa portion that never really panned out for us. So that was a whole piece of revenue that never came to fruition. We never got real traction with it. And that's a whole other podcast on maybe why that didn't work. But for this purpose, it just didn't work. So we had to pivot. We had to pivot, and I had a massage room, and it didn't really work. But so we had to punt on the massage part of it, and we turned it into the bourbon room, which was a cool private experience to focus on our core business, which was shaves and beards.
Which, by the way, is an awesome thing if you guys get a chance.
Yeah.
I don't drink, but that bourbon room experience, oh my gosh. I think I fell asleep like twice when it was Steve was shaving me or something. It was so relaxed back there. Sorry about that, but that's an awesome experience. So if you guys get a chance, go there. Do that.
So once I punted on them, you change your business plan. I always say, write it in pencil if you can. You're going to need to write it in pencil because you're going to erase and make changes, and you have to adjust. And so that part of the business, that line item was sucking wind for a few years. So we had a punt on that. We changed the room, and then our revenue in that room went up 4 or 5 times from what we were doing previously.
Now, did you feel like you were giving up though? Like if you have this idea of pedicures and massage and all the other stuff, and I see you punted on it, but was it
It took 4 years. You think you're giving up? I
okay?
took 4 years. Then after you do it and get through it and have success, I wish I made that decision year one.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I didn't make it for 4 years. I didn't make it. I kept trying to make it work for 4 years. So when your gut tells you, when your gut and the actual spreadsheets are telling you it's not working, listen to it.
Yeah, numbers don't lie, right? Numbers
Yeah.
don't lie. They are what they are. Yeah, because the reason why I wanted to, not to harp on that, but I wanted to bring that up was I think a lot of people strive for perfection from day one.
Right.
Like they think this is my business plan, it's got to work. And the minute one thing deviates from that plan, they're thinking either a 100% self-doubt that everything's going to go into flames,
Right.
or it's like, well, no, the plan is fine. This needs to change, So it's a little bit of ego kind of driven
Yeah.
at
And
that point there.
you do have to take an honest look at it. Is it the idea, or is it execution, or a little bit of both? You do got to diagnose it and see, because it could just be execution. It could be you didn't have the right operator, or the plan needs to be tweaked, or it could be something about execution. But you got to have honesty. You got to be very honest with yourself and be able to, especially as a founder or entrepreneur, if you have the idea, you got to check your ego to the side. And not all your ideas are perfect or work, and you got to be willing to tell yourself that, hey buddy, you were wrong. I mean, speaking to yourself, that's self-talk.
That's right. That's right. It is like, yeah, you're wrong. And to admit that it takes a lot, but that's your forms of leadership.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about something else. I touched on it before. Your staff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, it's for those who, if you go to Chick-fil-A, like you go to Chick-fil-A, it's like everyone is polite and everyone is so nice. And you're like, man, Chick-fil-A got this magic formula. Razor Bar, I guess, is the Chick-fil-A for haircuts in the sense of where the staff is amazing. Every single time I've gone into that spot, and it's been 4 or 5 years, if not longer. It's the same staff, number one. So I don't know how you do that. I have been through, I don't know how many real estate agents. I can't even count in my office, right? It's a rotating door at times. It's kind of sad. And of course, I look at myself. I'm like, okay, what am I not doing right that I can't keep an agent in this place? What the hell, dude?
So I'm glad you asked, because this to me is probably the most critical reason that we are successful. And I'm a big quote guy. I'll throw quotes at you because I like sound bites and quotes, because they stick because they're true. But this is really the crux of our business. I several years ago, I came to the realization, and when I was starting the business, I heard someone say the art of good business is being a good middleman.
Okay, so say it again.
The art of good business is being a good middleman.
All right, so explain that.
And so I'm a middleman. I came to the realization that I am the middle. My role is the middleman, and that's between staff. I want to connect great clients looking for an upscale luxury experience, more than just the average barbershop out there, and put them together with individuals that are super talented and passionate about being barbers and stylists. And I just want to be a connector between those two. The magic happens when you're with Steve in the chair, and your sons are with Steve in the chair, or our other staff. And I'm just the middleman that's trying to connect it all. And Razor Bar is a hub, just so client and staff can meet and make the magic happen. And I think taking that thought process and understanding your role as the middleman, then I'm not out leading, and it's not about me. Because like you said, that how do we keep great staff is I think, and I hope they always see that they're my client. Our staff is it's servant leadership, and they're my client. And if I make Steve and the rest of the staff happy and treat them well and pay them fairly and have a human relationship with them, they're going to attract and give that great service to clients like yourself that are out there. And then that's how it just keeps going around. So it's
So
really, it's me just realizing that I'm a middleman. I'm trying to connect clients with our staff. And then again, being a servant leader where, you just put the staff first, you're paying them first, you're doing everything about them. And then it's going to come back to you tenfold if you're disciplined about that.
and it has. I mean, again, I don't know how many years I've been coming to you guys, but it's just I cannot tell you like if we go to a restaurant or something like that, I'm always seeing somebody different at the
Yeah.
favorite restaurants. But you guys is just keeping there. So where did you hear that quote from? Where did you that your
That
quote?
actual quote,
Yeah.
it's the craziest place ever, but it was actually in a movie called Layer Cake, on Netflix.
Never heard of it. Okay.
Um, yeah. And
Layer cake. So I gotta watch that.
Layer Cake. So, but it's funny, I heard the quote and that pulled it together for me. Um, but it's not, I had the feeling of that even before I heard the quote. The quote just kind of solidified, what it was for me. But it just really resonated with me that, yeah, really the art of good business is being a good middleman. And in this business, especially, you're just trying to take a very talented staff and connect them with clients, so that our whole operation is kind of built around that, from how we operate internally, how we market it. Because you'll never see me on any of our marketing. You've never seen me.
No.
I'm not on it. You never see my name. I'm not on the website. My picture's not on the website. There's nothing about me or my story because it's not about me or this session is because it's
Well, yeah.
relevant for your audience. But beyond that, for our business, I'm a middleman. I'm background noise. The magic happens between our staff and the clientele and customers that come in our business. And so I got comfortable with that role early where, that part's not about me. I want to be a invisible role player, just trying to make that connection happen.
Yeah, you want to be the background, the producer, the director, the
Yeah,
guy behind the
exactly. You're
scenes.
behind
Yeah.
the camera.
Yeah.
My role in our business is behind the camera. Like, you're not out in front of the camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get it, and I love that. I mean, personally, I'm an introvert, and for the most part, but in my business, you have to be in front because people want to see you. It is what it is.
And I learned a lot early on because this is a good point. Coming from the corporate world, a retail service-based industry in salon and barbering is much different than being in a corporate environment. People, our staff are artisans. They're artists at
Yeah,
heart,
that's right.
creative, and they're artists. And you can't, have the mind. You can't treat that like a corporate cog in the wheel. Otherwise, those people would have, they wouldn't chose this industry if they wanted to be that corporate cog. So my first year I had to adjust because even though I kind of was aware of that, having done 20 some years in in that corporate environment, you're a little bit brainwashed and just have bad habits that you gotta, or just readjust and say, hey, I'm not in that environment anymore. You got to become a stylist and barber whisperer, and
Yeah. Well, you have to once you leave and kind of come back, then you kind of realize, okay, here's what I'm in, right? Because yeah, hairstylists are artists, almost like a chef, almost
yeah,
like a chef rather, right? Because it's you're creative and passionate about what you create, the dish you serve to your the person's going to eat it,
right.
and very passionate about everything. You're drawing, that's a musician. You guys are all in those kind of, in my opinion, that's what you guys are like, because it is a creative spirit.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
and rightly so, our team and others like it, they don't react well to like, hey, we need to do 2 more haircuts or 2 shave to get to this projection on a financial sheet. Like, that doesn't matter. Like,
that's right.
it matters to the business going on, but you can't use that as a motivator for people that are creative and artisans and in that service kind of role. So I kind of had to adjust, um, how your interpersonal skills with that mindset.
Yeah. See, and that's why we call this the mindset movement, right? Because that's what it is. It's
Right.
you need to know your audience, right? So you need to know your staff. You need to know who you're serving. And like you said, your clients are your staff is your clients. Yes, you have people like
And
me who come in.
it made me a better business person and person because a lot of, here's a great quote guy, right? Mother Teresa said, I can't do what you can do, you can't do what I can do, but together we can do great things.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I use that
Amen.
model, and because I
Amen.
can't get behind the chair, I can't shave your head or do your beard. Um, and then there's skill sets I bring to the table that our team can't do. But again, I can't do what they can do. They can't do what I can do, but together we do great things.
That's right. No, that's right. So let's talk about actually. So let's talk about those great things. You had one shop,
Mhm.
and now have your second one, and that's about what, like 2 years old, roughly. Is that about right?
Correct. 2 years minus the almost 4 months shutdown for COVID.
Yeah, exactly. That was that was
Always an
busy there.
asterisk there.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who are listening to this, and like I said, you had you leverage your stuff, you leverage your background in accounting, you leverage your background in the marketing experience that you got from working at the pharmaceutical companies. You leverage all that. Now you have your shop open. You had your business plan, which you ripped up essentially because it just wasn't there. You were 2 years behind the curve, if you will, of getting your projections ready stuff.
Correct.
Why didn't you stop? If you're 2 years behind the curve, making your projections, if you started several other profit centers within your boutique of a massage parlor and that all quit, why the hell did you keep going? Why didn't you stop?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it's kind of layered. There's probably multiple reasons. There's one because of, a lot of times when you do this, and when you go into debt as well, like to have an SBA loan, and you're signing leases and have personal guarantees on leases, and you take that fully jump, you kind of burn the what do they you burn the boats, really. You,
Yeah,
you get on the beach, you burn the
you
boats
burn
behind
that boat because you're
you.
not going. That's
There's
right.
only one way out. There's only one way out, and that's going forward. And and that's so it's from the fear of the consequences that can happen to you, but it's also the fear of letting people down. Um,
Ah,
I didn't
okay.
want to. I didn't want to. I'm not going to hire staff. I remember one girl. It's funny. Because I was very transparent with my team. Like the first year, we were struggling a bit because your expenses are more than revenue, and you're
Of
you're
course.
struggling, you're struggling to get up that hill to try to get to break even and then to profitability. And the one girl, she said, she's like, wow, you just hired all these people. We just came from other places. She's like, you're not thinking about throwing in the towel, right? And when she said it, I mean, I looked right at her and looking in her eyes, and that's you just it's you if you have it in you don't want to let people down. You don't want to be a year or two in and be laying people off and closing the business. And if I did, I might have been okay financially doing that, but then look at all the families and lives and people you impacted by not seeing it through,
There you go.
so it's a little bit of the financial handcuffs that are on you from the kind of agreements you're getting into from the business perspective, but it's also a human perspective of not wanting to let your team down, or yourself or your family.
That's awesome. Good. Because it is easy. It's easy just to say this is not going to work. Let me go back.
Right.
But like you said, you have staff and they're relying on you.
Yeah.
They saw your clients, if you will, not your staff. Your clients saw something you say, you know what, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go and I'm going to trust his vision and go with it and stuff like that. So that speaks volumes to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. You see, when you're hiring people, they're coming in. It was a new concept. They knew I was new to the industry. You're selling the vision. You don't want to get in and be like, wow, I just sold all these folks that just left whatever they were doing and joined us. And now I'm saying, hey
Absolutely.
guys, it's really not work. We're hitting some speed bumps. It's not working. So I'm out of here. Sorry. I wouldn't be able to sleep if I did that.
No, and good. I mean, you're a good person. I know that, and that's
And
so.
here's another, I'd be totally remiss if I didn't bring this up. A main catalyst for having me push through too is I met my wife, and we got married shortly after we opened.
Oh,
And she was so supportive. I mean, I couldn't have met a better partner. We got married like 2 years after I opened, and I remember us going on walks, and if I didn't have her to go on those long walks, and she would talk me off the ledge 1,000 times, and was just supportive. And no, don't give up on your vision. Follow your dream. You will find a way. We'll find a way. We'll make this work. So that was a godsend to kind of find her, along this journey. And luckily, she was entrepreneur. She's entrepreneur as well. She has her own dental practice.
okay.
Um, and so she understood from being, kind of having your own business. She understood that. And then also I got a little lucky there too, because she carried us for a couple of years when I when I really had to hop off from freelancing and focus on Razor Bar full time. And I was putting more money back into the business than I was taking out for myself. And quite frankly, without her income and her support, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. I was in that boat too, of my wife had to carry us for a while until everything got going and stuff. But I know there's probably people listening to this saying, "Well, you got lucky, you got somebody there." Was it luck, or is that you put good energy into the world and good energy came back too? You follow your vision, and it is hard. Like when you have, if your significant other is of the W-2 world and just lives the cubicle life and it's all about that, it is hard for them to kind of understand if you're the
Understand.
entrepreneur. It's very, very hard. um, but that doesn't mean that you don't have support. That doesn't mean that you quit a toe on the top because your significant other doesn't understand what you're going through. I think sometimes as an entrepreneur we shoot ourselves in the foot, because we feel, well, we're self-employed, no one knows what I'm going through. No, a lot of people realize what you're going through. There's just a community out there. You just have to kind of talk about it and understand. And just because you're entrepreneur, you're self-employed, doesn't mean that you go and just go into a corner and then you deal with it yourself. That's the worst thing you can do. You listen to podcasts, and there's a lot of war stories out there. But I will say, yeah, you are fortunate, no doubt about it, that you have someone who understands that,
Right.
that background there and stuff like that and support. But and again, to my point about the entrepreneur, we shoot ourselves, is that we always feel that we're in this by ourselves. We're in this on our own. But
Ah,
if
you
we,
totally feel like you're on an island.
yeah, but and here's the thing: you are on an island to an extent, but you're building a business. So build the island.
Mhm.
Bring people onto your island bit by bit and stuff like that, and
Build a bridge to bring
build
people.
that bridge to bring into them and stuff like that. So bit by bit, it happens. But for some reason, I mean, I'm guilty of this and or was guilty of this. I felt no one in the world knows what I'm going through. That's a bunch of bull.
Right.
A lot of people know what I'm going through. They just keep it to themselves, or they're like, you're going to figure it out. And you did. You some way, somehow figured it out. You easily could have said, man, my plan was to do this and these other things didn't work out. I'm done with it. But you said no.
Right.
Your passion for seeing what you thought was a void. And I agree, there is a void of what you offer. I When you guys opened, someone recommended you guys, but there was a competitor with a different name, a very similar name, but they changed the last several. So I went there by accident thinking I'm coming to you.
Right.
And they said it's in Collegeville. And I'm like, well, this address is not Collegeville, it's a different address. So I went there and it was a copycat of what you had to offer.
Yeah.
And I was there and I'm like, it was nice and stuff, don't get me wrong. But then I told the person recommended, I said, yeah, it was right here. They said, that's not the spot. I'm like, what? They're like, that's not the spot. And they said, you need to go to here. So they actually took me to
Yeah.
where you're like in college. But they said, here's where it is. I went inside. So I met Steve, and rest, as it says, history. But I guess, and I got for a tangent there. I guess my point was that you didn't give up, you didn't fold, you leverage everything, and now something inside you said, you know what? I want a second location. I want location number two.
Right.
What were you thinking?
Well, and I wanted an opportunity to kind of right all the wrongs.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to
Okay.
be able to apply the lessons I learned. Um, well, also, I did get it, even in my initial business plan, I never intended to just have one location. I wanted to have something that was scalable to like a smaller chain. My initial goal was to maybe have 6 or 7 in the greater Philadelphia area.
Okay.
So I always had that as a goal in the back of my head. And then, if you reach that, then see what happens after that. Um, but once I got through and got closer, I did want to. There were a lot of lessons I was learning, and I'm like, wow, if I could just do this again, if I could just do this over. And one example is we went too big. That in our game, revenue per square foot in the kind of retail service world that's nirvana, right? You want to
Yeah.
you want to maximize revenue per square foot. So we went large up there. We went in like a 2,200 square foot space, which that is a lot of overhead that you had to grow into, and a lot of you're on a hamster mill there trying to get up that revenue
And
curve.
that's what I was asking. Why would you do? Because not that why would you, but when I walk into your first spot, I think we got one, two, three, four,
10,
five,
10
six, 7, 8,
stations.
10 stations. And you guys, I could go there like on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and everybody's busy. And you guys were always busy. I'm like, how in the hell? And then you tell me, hey, I'm thinking about second location. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm like, this keeps you busy. How are you going to do a second location? And then the
It took
location
a
was,
good 3 or 4 years to get all those chairs filled, Bill. To get that. So I think we had probably pre-COVID, we were probably seeing about 700 guys a week come through for services, which is pretty
I
impressive.
believe that. I believe it because you were never, there was never an empty chair. And if there was, it was only empty because a person's hair was done and somebody else was waiting to come in.
Right.
You
With,
guys are always
with,
packed.
with the like the iceberg effect, so that's what you do see, which is great. But some things you don't see is the operational effort it takes to run that kind of machine. It becomes a machine that also starts running you too as a business owner.
Mm,
That back to again, I said
there
that
you go.
treadmill you can't get off. It becomes too big, and it's really running your life. You're not like running it because it's so big. And in our industry, we talked about staff. There is in the service industry, you are paying your staff first, and so even though you're doing that volume, it doesn't necessarily mean profit is going up, like your revenue is growing up,
Yeah.
because you have your overhead and your labor costs. I mean, in this industry, it's not. My labor costs can be around 60% of your revenue. Like
Wow.
right up, like when you factor, commissions you're paying people, front desk people, and then all the benefit, you're paying their payroll taxes, um, fees for payroll system. When you add up all your labor and payroll costs, it could get very close to 60% of your top line revenue. So that only leaves 40% to pay for all your other bills, and then a portion of that ends up being profit. So more is you know more is not always more. You know, you know, and that's what I learned with Wayne. Wayne is half the size. It's 4 chairs. We'll do less revenue, but the profit margin is much higher than our
Yes.
location.
Yeah, that's that constant that phrase we hear, less is more, right? That's
Yeah,
exactly
less is
kind of
more.
that Wayne
And
is
it's
less is
easier to
more. Yeah.
run. The ease of operation. People in a retail or service business, don't underestimate the ease of operate. You want to simplify and make the operation as easy as possible, um, because then it won't become like a machine that just runs your life as an owner.
Yeah. No, and when I started this particular podcast with you, I came on and I said, the small business in a box thing I did for the 4 weeks was talking about their foundations, right? You gotta have to, as long as your foundation is strong,
Right.
you just pick up that system and put it any single where. And like to your point, you said you wanted to right the wrongs. It wasn't that you failed over the first location. It was like, you know what, I could have done this better, but you needed to go through that. You had to go through those growing pains and push through those growing pains, because without that, you wouldn't have this.
Right.
Without Collegeville, Wayne wouldn't have existed.
Right.
Without
Correct.
Collegeville's 10 chairs, those 4 chairs wouldn't have existed over there at the Wayne store. You need it. And I think people need to hear that. I think people who are on the sidelines, who are scared, who are fearful, need to hear from you that, listen, yeah, I needed money, but even if I had the money, I had to come over the fear. Yes, money can make me more confident if the capital is there, but then you now need to, like, you later fast forward in the conversation. You said I signed an SBA loan, personal guarantee.
Yeah.
So you got the money, but now a different set of fear kicked in. How the hell do I pay this back? If this doesn't work, I'm on the hook for all this cash.
Right.
You got to pay it back. So we can let fear control us every corner if we choose it to be. That's on us, right?
Right.
So I tell people we have the brain and we have the mind. The brain is a physical thing. We all have one. Um, we all have the physical thing of 24 hours in a day. It's what we choose to do in those 24 hours and what we choose to push our brain through, which means your mind.
Right.
Like I say, make up your mind. We'll create your mind, right? That's what we're doing in this mindset of being a business owner. You easily could have buckled. You easily could have stayed comfortably in your analyst career. You could have easily stayed comfortably in the pharmaceuticals marketing. You could have started a marketing company. You could have started another. You could have done a whole bunch of stuff,
Right.
but you followed your passion, and your passion was, you know what, I want to have guys give their fair shake of the salon world.
Right.
I think you've done a great job with that.
And
Obviously,
it's funny, it even goes deeper. And Navid, it's perfect that I'm talking to you for this, and we didn't talk or plan this about it all. But the fact that you bringing your boys into the shop, that's where my, when you talk about a spiritual passion gets tied back to this, was because I thought about getting into this because my fondest memories of my dad passed young. I was 12 years old.
oh wow, okay.
But so there's a lot of, now that I'm 52, that's a distant, there's things that are very distant, but there's a couple memories I have that feel like yesterday, even though they've been all these years. And the one was the trips to the barbershop. He and I would go to the barbershop together. And and so the rides there, the rides to and from when you're in the car, and that bonding we had, and at the shop, and how I saw him interact with the barbers, and that camaraderie that goes on. Like they even though it's been, you know 40 years ago, they stick out vividly in my head. And that kind of always stuck. That's what made me look at this, look at the barbering business and
Okay.
salon and barbering business. And then I obviously looked at business reasons, like it's fairly recession proof, and Amazon and the internet's not going to put us out of business. There were all those things that appealed to it, but it did come from kind of an emotional point or a passionate point from way back to when I was a kid with my father, and I wanted to try to create that experience. So
Yeah, so you definitely could have. That adds another layer. I mean, I didn't know that, so thank you for
yeah.
sure. That's another layer because sometimes when we let emotion make our decisions, that could blow up in your face.
Yes.
You let emotion make that decision, right? I tell my kids all the time, never ever, when they do something that makes me upset, I never punish them right away because if I punish them, the punishment is not going to fit the crime. If
Right.
they do something good, I don't want to reward them right away because I know there's going to be an over reward, kind of creating a very average kind of thing, right? So when you make an emotional based decision, it is a risky decision at the end of the day. But it sounds to me that yes, you did have emotion involved, but it wasn't an overwhelming percentage of your
Right.
decision making. You you look, at the end of the day, I don't care what people tell you. Yeah, money can buy happiness. It does because I'm happy when I pay my bills and I need money to pay the bills. And it does make the world go around. It doesn't it's not the sustainability of money that creates the happiness that comes from within. Right. So that's that passion that you talk about. That's the emotion that you talk about as well. But we still gotta be smart about it, which it sounds like obviously.
And that's why you need the both sides of the brain, the
That's
right
right.
side. You can have the emotion, it can be a driver, but then you got to have, the numbers end of it, the analytics. You got to do your due diligence, and then make sure that that matches up.
Yeah.
That you're not just foolishly going to something, but um, that it makes sense.
Yeah. So for those listening and you talking about how do you balance, well, listen to what he just said. It's the balance, right? He's the memory from his father of being a kid going to, then it's the analytics of the finances, then it's the proposals, and it's the projections. He just balanced everything out. And how do you balance everything? Well, that's it. He puts and you put it sounds like to me, you put yourself in check, right? You say, okay, listen, let me reel it in. Yes, I want to have 6 or 7 spots, but you know what? My projection was 6 or 7, but I have two, maybe a third one. And guess what? Like you said, you want to get that car. Once you get the shiny car, you're like, this is it.
Yep.
I bought the car that I've been wanting, and this is my feeling that I have for it. It's not what you think. And so in business, when you are self-employed and you project everything out, you don't need the perfection from the door.
No.
You seem very content at 2 stores. Not saying you're stopping at 2, I don't know, but you seem very happy. You seem very balanced. I know whenever I come, we have great discussions just about anything, football, whatever it is, and stuff like that. Um, and so I guess my point of this rant is that don't look for perfection from the door. Perfection is whatever it's going to turn out to be, and it may not be your initial vision. As you get through with everything, it'll come into focus when it's ready to come in focus.
Right.
Everything takes time, and that may not be on your schedule. It may not be as fast as you want, but when it comes, you'll know it. You'll
Yeah.
know it, you'll feel it, and it's hard to explain. It just feels right to do this. Because you easily could have said, like you told me, I remember when you opened the Wayne store, you're like, man, I like the look in your face, because remember, we were looking at spots in different cities. And you talked about it, but then when this spot in Wayne came up, the look in your eye and how you spoke about it, you knew this spot in Wayne was the right time to make the move. It's just that feeling that you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah, you got to stay observant, stay curious. Times change too. You're going to have to evolve. You got to fall in love with the process and know that you're going to, every week, every month, every year, you're going to have to continue to evolve. Um, because the initial plan of having 6 or 7 locations in the greater Philly area, well, our business model might change a little bit.
yeah.
Um,
And that's okay. Like
yeah,
that's okay to admit that, and I don't want to keep harping on that, but it is okay. And people think again, it's gotta be perfection from the door. It doesn't. And I think that perfection is what causes that fear. That if it doesn't go to plan,
right,
what the hell did I just do?
right. So almost flip that around. The best advice probably is to actually assume that it's not going to go as planned.
There you go.
Assume the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Literally go into it eyes wide open and
That,
say it is absolutely not going to go how I predict it to go.
there you go.
And just be ready to adapt, to change, and adjust. Based on what you learn.
Yeah, that's cool. So listen, guys, I know we try to keep these, like 20, 30 minutes to an hour, going over an hour here. So we're gonna wrap this up here.
All
But
right.
Ed, thank you very much, man, for agreeing to do this. I know you close up shop and it's a late, not late, but late sort of, if you will. But do you want to give out? I'll tell you what, listen, anyone comes up, please plug your business, give your addresses and hours or whatever you want to give. Go ahead, man. The next few seconds are yours for sure.
Yeah, it's Razor Bar, fine grooming for men. Um, we're a luxury barber shop that's all about a cool grooming experience. Our location, we're in Providence Town Center in Collegeville, PA, as the Wegmans and Movie Tavern up there. That's our first location. And then we're in Wayne, Pennsylvania on Lancaster Avenue down here on the main line. And we're at razorbar.com. That's where you can find us, razrbar.com.
Yeah, look at
Thanks.
the spelling, guys. Razrbar. There's no
Right.
O in there, so make sure.
Drop the
Yep, drop that out. Just said it. So I go there, guys. I'm telling you, if you're listening to this, if you're follically challenged, still go there. You get a great shade. They put the towel around your head and everything. It's a great experience. If you have kids there, take your kids there. They're very friendly. There's a barber named there named John, who him and my son go at it every single time they're there. It's just a great experience overall. We have a great time there. But Ed, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks you guys for listening. Thanks for your patience and listening to it. I hope you got a lot. Feel free to reach out to me if you guys want to reach out to Ed. He's always willing to help anybody out in the industry or not. And if you guys, anyone here thinking about becoming a barber or salonist, stylist in the Montgomery County area, feel free to swing on by the Razor Bar rather in Collegeville, like I said, in Wayne. There's good food in the areas too and stuff like that. So you can stop and get a bite to eat as well while you're there. But again, thanks for joining. My name is Navid Moosa, the Mindset Movement. And thanks for your time as always. And I will see you and talk to you guys next week.
Thank you.
Take care, Ed. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Be safe. Be good to each other out there. Take care of yourselves.